The road out of Ogaki smells like wet straw and horse dung, and the smoke of 10,000 cooking fires that were put out before they were finished. You have been walking since the second hour of the night. The tanegashima is slung across your back, barrel pointing skyward, muzzle wrapped in oilcloth because the clouds have been spitting since midnight, and a wet charge is a useless one. You learned this at Fushimi. In your left hand you carry the powder horn. In your right hand you carry nothing, because your right hand is the hand that will pull the cord, and you do not let anything tire it before it is needed. The man ahead of you is Takeda, not the Takeda, a foot soldier with the same surname as the dead clan, which he finds neither funny nor tragic. He has been in Ieyasu's service for 11 years. He walks like a man who has stopped counting the roads. You have been in service for 4 years. You are 22 years old. You are carrying a weapon that can kill a man at 100 paces before he has finished drawing his sword, and you have never once thought of it as power. You think of it as weight, 6 can of iron and walnut stock, and the morning is not yet here, and your shoulders have not yet forgiven last night. There is something in your breast pocket, a folded piece of paper, the corners worn soft as cloth, the ink so faded you could not read it even in daylight. You do not need to read it. You have had it for 4 years. Your mother pressed it into your hand at the gate of Okazaki and told you it was a prayer written by the temple priest, and you believed her, and then later, you understood that she had written it herself because the brushwork was hers, careful and slightly uneven, the way it always was when she was concentrating. You have not been home in 4 years. You do not let yourself think about the road back. The village is behind you now. The officers have directed the column off the road and into the fields to the left, the western side of the valley, and you have spent the last hour moving into position in darkness so complete you cannot see the man in front of you, except by the sound of his feet in wet grass. The valley of Sekigahara is shaped like a bowl held at an angle. High ground to the north and east, flat ground in the center where the Nakasendo Road runs through, and to the west, the mountains that have already swallowed the last of Ishida Mitsunari's rearguard. You know this because the ashigaru captain told you 3 nights ago when he spread a map on the ground and showed the formation to the unit commanders. You are not a unit commander. You are a gunner in the 3rd rank of the left Arquebusier line. But the captain showed you anyway, because he believes men fight better when they know what they are standing in. You have not decided yet whether he is right. What you know is this. The enemy is to the east. Ishida Mitsunari commands the western coalition. Tokugawa Ieyasu commands from the center right. The Shimazu are somewhere to the south and have not declared themselves. The Kobayakawa are on the hill to your right and have not declared themselves either, which means 17,000 men whose intentions you do not know are positioned above your flank, and the captain has told you not to think about them. You are thinking about them. You set the tanegashima on the ground beside you and begin the preparation you have done 10,000 times. Powder from the horn into the barrel. The right amount, not by measurement, by feel. 4 years of loading telling your hand what 4 years of counting never could. Patch of cloth over the muzzle. Ball seated with the rod. Pressure even, not hammered, because a cracked ball is a dead man's shot. Charge to the pan. Cover closed. Cord checked. The cord is lit. Around you in the darkness, 30 men are doing the same thing. The smell of slow match is everywhere. Small orange points of light in the black field, and it occurs to you that anyone watching from the hills above can see exactly where you are. This thought arrives and departs without alarming you. You have learned that the thoughts that should frighten you rarely do, and the ones that should not frighten you cannot be stopped. The fog comes in before dawn. By the time the sky begins to pale, you cannot see 40 paces. The valley of Sekigahara, in the early morning of the 21st day of the 9th month, is inside a cloud that has settled down from the mountains overnight and shows no intention of lifting. The grass is wet. The ground is wet. Your feet inside their straw sandals have been wet since Ogaki. None of this is the problem. The problem is that you are a man whose weapon is effective at 100 paces, and you are standing in a fog that ends at 40. Takeda is to your right. You cannot see him. You can hear him breathing, the slow, controlled breath of a man who has decided not to waste anything on fear. You have been trying to learn this breath for 4 years. You are not sure you have learned it. Somewhere ahead of you, to the east, is the Ishida line. You do not know how far. You do not know what they are doing. You do not know if their arquebusiers are already in position, already loaded, already pointing at the fog in your direction. The captain's voice comes from somewhere behind you, low and carrying. The particular voice of a man who has given orders under fire before and knows that volume is the enemy of discipline. He says to hold position. He says to keep the match covered in the damp. He says the order to advance will come from the right. You cover the match. You wait. This is the interval, the gunpowder era's specific cruelty. Not the volley, not the advance, not the cannon's pressure through your chest. The interval, The gap between the last order and the next one, when a man has nothing to do but stand in wet grass and know exactly how afraid he is. The fog does not move. The shapes in it do not clarify. There is birdsong somewhere above the valley. A single bird singing into the cold morning with the absolute indifference of a creature that does not know what day this is. You put your hand on your breast pocket. The paper is still there. The drums begin at the hour of the dragon. Not your drums, enemy drums, to the east, further than you expected, which means the Ishida line has pulled back, or was never as close as the night advance suggested. The sound comes through the fog like something physical, a pressure in the air before it is a sound in the ear, and the 30 men around you shift their weight without moving, the body's involuntary response to what the mind is still processing. Then your drums. The order does not come from the right. It comes from the center. A runner materializing out of the fog, young, breathing hard, says 3 words to the captain that you cannot hear from where you stand. The captain turns. His voice is the same as before, unhurried, carrying. Advance to the road. The formation moves. You move with it, tanegashima at the carry. Left hand on the barrel, right hand away from the cord because you do not fire until you see something to fire at, and you are not there yet. The grass gives way to packed earth. The edge of the Nakasendo road, rutted from 10,000 wagon wheels, and now from 10,000 men who have crossed it in the night. You step over a broken wheel spoke without looking down. You step over something else without looking down. The fog begins to thin. Not lift, thin. The grey deepens at the edges, and the shapes inside it acquire definition. You can see 40 paces now. 50. The road stretches east into the diminishing white, and then, at the far edge of visibility, a darker mass begins to resolve. The Ishida line. Further than 40 paces. Further than 100. 200. Maybe 300. Impossible to judge in the fog, and this is what no one tells you before the first battle. That distance in smoke and mist is not a measurement, but a guess. And your guess, and the captain's guess, and the enemy's guess are all different, and the battle is fought in the space between those guesses. The captain raises his hand. The line halts. You bring the tanegashima to your shoulder. This is what you know about the tanegashima, about a matchlock arquebus in the year 1600. The barrel is 42 sun long. The caliber is 11 momma. At 50 paces, the ball will pass through whatever it hits and continue for another 30. At 100 paces, it will still find the gap between armor plates if your aim is clean and the ball is seated true. At 200 paces, against a mass of men in formation, it will find someone. It takes 90 seconds to reload. This is not metaphor. This is the condition under which every decision in the next hour will be made. The fog is at 150 paces now. The enemy mass is visible. Not individual men, not faces, not the particular expression of a man who knows the volley is coming. A mass, a darkness. Moving or stationary, you cannot yet tell. Your finger is on the cord. Your eye is along the barrel. The captain's hand comes down. The sound is not a sound. It is a pressure that begins in the chest before it reaches the ears. 30 tanegashima firing in a single compressed beat, and the fog erupts, and the smoke is everywhere at once, and you cannot see past 20 paces, and you cannot hear anything except the ringing that has replaced every other sound in the world. And your hand is already on the powder horn, because 90 seconds is 90 seconds and the second volley will not fire itself. You do not know if you hit anything. You never know. This is the truth of the gunpowder battlefield that no one in Okazaki understands. Not your mother, with her careful brushwork. Not the boys you grew up with, who asked you what it was like to be an arquebusier. Not the temple priest, who wrote or did not write the prayer in your pocket. You fire into a mass at a distance through smoke and fog, and somewhere in the mass, something happens, and you will never know what it was, and the loading takes 90 seconds, and you load. The fog lifts at the second hour of fighting, not all at once. In patches, the way a curtain tears, revealing a section at a time. What you see, when you see it, is not what the map showed 3 nights ago. The Ishida line has not broken. It is compressed, pulled in from the flanks and thickened at the center. A denser formation than before, men packed close enough that the individual loses meaning and the mass becomes the thing. This is the tactical response to arquebusiers, and you have heard the captain explain it. Pack close enough and the ball goes through 2 men instead of 1, which is worse, but at least the line holds. You understand the logic. You load again. Takeda is still to your right. You know this because he said your name once, in the second pause between volleys, said it the way a man says a familiar word to confirm it is still in his mouth. You said his back. Neither of you said anything else. The drums have changed rhythm. To the north, somewhere above the fog line, the Fukushima unit has engaged. You can hear the arquebus volley, different pitch, different interval, and then the sound of steel on steel that means the ashigaru have closed. To the south, the Shimazu are still silent, which is either neutral or catastrophic, and you have no way to know which. On the hill to your right, the Kobayakawa have not moved. You have stopped thinking about them, not because they are no longer a threat, because thinking about a threat you cannot address is a cost you cannot afford right now. The tanegashima holds this thought. It takes 90 seconds to reload, and you have fired 6 volleys, and your powder is lower than you would like, and the man to your left took a hit from something, arrow or arquebus ball, you did not see which, and went down between the 3rd and 4th volley and has not gotten up, and the man who replaced him in the line is someone from the rear rank whose name you do not know. You learn his name later. You learn it on the march back, in the way that men learn each other's names after the fighting, by sitting next to each other in silence long enough that the silence requires filling. The Kobayakawa move at the 4th hour. You hear it before you see it. The sound from the hill to the right, a sound that has no category in your experience, the sound of 15,000 men beginning to move, which is not a shout and not a drum and not a volley, but a gathered weight in motion, a mass that the hill contains and then does not contain. They are moving east, into the Ishida flank. The captain says nothing for a moment. Around you in the line, the same silence holds. 30 men processing the same information through the same arithmetic. Kobayakawa Hideaki has chosen. 15,000 men on the Ishida flank, moving now, and the Ishida line, which is held against your volleys and the Fukushima pressure for 4 hours, begins to come apart at the edge you cannot see. What you can see is the mass in front of you. It is still there. It is not receiving orders anymore. The drums have stopped. The formation is present, but the intention has gone out of it, and this is something you have not seen before. An enemy that is still standing, but has already decided. The pressure on the line has changed, not the physical pressure, which is the same. The meaning of the pressure. The captain raises his hand again. Advance. The Battle of Sekigahara ends before the hour of the horse. 6 hours. From the first drum to the last runner coming through, with the word that the Western coalition has broken, that the pursuit is ordered, that the field belongs to Tokugawa Ieyasu. 6 hours. You have been standing in wet grass on the western edge of the Nakasendo Road for 6 of the most significant hours in the history of this country, and you did not know that while they were happening, because a man in the 3rd rank of the Arquebusier line does not see history. He sees 40 paces of fog and the mass at the edge of it, and the cord in his right hand. You fired 11 volleys. You counted, not because you were instructed to, because counting is what your hands needed to do when they were not loading, the small arithmetic that stands between a man and the knowledge of where he is and what he has done. 11 volleys, 30 men in the line, at 150 paces against a compressed formation. You will never know the number. You have decided not to try. The field in the afternoon is what fields are after battles. The fog entirely gone now, the sun surprising, the light coming in at an angle that illuminates what the morning concealed. You walk through it, following the captain, not looking down the way you learned not to look down on other fields. And the sound of the field is the particular sound that no one warns you about. Not the violence, not the impact, but the afterwards. The sounds a field makes when the fighting has stopped and the men in the grass have not. Takeda walks beside you. He has a cut on his left forearm that he has not mentioned and that you have not asked about, because there is a protocol to these things that is not written anywhere and does not need to be. At the edge of the field, near the place where the Nakasendo Road begins its descent toward Ogaki, the captain calls the unit to halt and calls the roll. This is the ritual you knew was coming. The ritual every Arquebusier unit performs after every action. The accounting that makes the chaos legible. The captain calls a name. The man answers, or he does not answer. There is no middle. He calls 26 names that answer. He calls 4 names that do not. You knew 3 of the 4. Not well, the way men on a march know each other, which is by proximity and shared discomfort, and the particular intimacy of standing in a formation for 4 hours, which is not friendship, but is something that has no other word. The 4th, the man from the rear rank, the man whose name you learned on the march, whose name you learned in the silence that required filling. His name is called and does not answer, and the captain marks it and moves on. 26. You say the number to yourself, not aloud. 26 out of 30. This is the arithmetic of the 3rd Arquebusier rank on the western flank at Sekigahara, which is not in any record you will ever read, which the regimental historians will not think to preserve because the record keeps the battle and does not keep the counting. The record keeps what happened. It does not keep what it cost. That night, you camp on the road north of Sekigahara, the unit spread along the verge in the posture of men who have stopped because the order came and not because the body agreed. Fires are lit. Someone has acquired rice from somewhere, which is either looted or distributed, and you do not ask which. You take the paper out of your breast pocket. You do not unfold it. You have not unfolded it since Okazaki, 4 years ago, because you understood the first time you reached for it, 3 days into the first march, homesick in a way that surprised you with its physical weight, that the prayer worked only as long as it remained unread. Read, it becomes a specific set of words in your mother's careful, slightly uneven brushwork. Unread, it remains everything she meant by it. You hold it. The fire is 20 paces away and the light does not reach you and you cannot see the paper in the dark. You can feel it, the worn corners, the softness of paper that has been in a man's pocket through rain and sweat and 4 years of roads. It weighs nothing. It weighs more than the tanegashima, which is currently grounded beside you, the oilcloth back over the muzzle because the night air is damp again and old habits are the ones that keep you. Takeda is asleep already. He does this, drops into sleep the way water drops, with no apparent transition between waking and not. You have not learned this either. You put the paper back in your pocket. You think about Okazaki, not the gate, not your mother's face. You do not let yourself go there. You think about the road out of Okazaki, which runs north along the Yahagi River for 3 ri before it joins the main road, and the way that road smells in autumn, which is like river mud and cut rice and wood smoke from the first fires of the cold season, and how it smells exactly like nothing you have encountered since. The road back exists. You have not counted the days. Sekigahara is over. The record will say, the Western Coalition broke, Tokugawa Ieyasu victor, 12,000 dead on the field, the long peace beginning. The record will not say, 1 arquebusier, 3rd rank, left flank, fired 11 volleys in 6 hours of fog and smoke and did not know if any of them found anyone, and counted 26 names that answered and 4 that did not, and kept a piece of paper in his pocket the whole time. But you know, you are the record that doesn't get kept. And for now, on this road, with the fire 20 paces away and Takeda breathing the breath of a man who has decided, and the tanegashima grounded, and the match finally cold, for now, that is enough.